There's a question here about a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Someone is saying that Rwandans are very interested in seeing a Truth and Reconciliation Commission happen in their country. Is this something that you think could help, is the question?
I'm not on top of that story. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission that I was more aware of was taking place in DRC, and sort of calls for crimes committed in.
I think it isn't. Sorry to interrupt you, Michaela. It isn't happening yet, but the idea of it. Do you think that that's something that could help Rwanda and the region, or Rwandans?
I think it could help, but I'm not sure I can see it happening. Never, no. What you had with Gacaca, which were the grassroots trials, which allowed a lot. That you had these crammed prisons, and you had the Hutus who had been accused of taking part in the genocide, facing their own villagers, colleagues, friends, neighbours, who would then either say, yeah, he didn't do anything very serious during the genocide, or no, I saw him kill my mother. So the Gacaca trials were a really interesting example of grassroots justice, and did allow people to leave prison, because otherwise they'd have all been there for the next 150 years. But the Gacaca trials, very notably, did not consider in any way the crimes committed by members of the RPF against Hutu civilians, and that was declared not part of their remit. Same thing has with the International Criminal Tribunal in Arusha, which again was halted in its tracks with American support when it looked like the RPF's role in the downing of the possible role, contested role in the downing of the plane was going to be considered. So what you've seen repeatedly over the years is that any time it comes to the RPF being accused of crimes and having to acknowledge that they played a part in that, there's complete, the whole thing comes grinding to a halt. And in this context, I'll just mention the death in detention of Kizito Mihigo, who was a gospel singer, aTutsi survivor, who died last year in prison, supposedly committing suicide, hanging himself in his cell. I don't think anyone actually believes that, but that's the official version. And his crime seemed to be that in his songs, he had started talking about, he was always very strong on the issue of reconciliation, and he had started talking about it's time that we accept, that not only is the Tutsi community hurting because it lost so many people during the genocide, but the Hutu community also lost people. And he used the phrase revenge killings, which made it clear he was talking about RPF killings. And that seems to have been enough for him to have been jailed, stripped of his celebrity status, humiliated in public, treated like a kind of as a terrorist. And eventually dying in jail. So I don't think there's any tolerance for that kind of even-handed form of justice.